The 9001 Podcast.
Do you really believe your own hype that much? I am the hype!
Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the 9001 Podcast. Today is January 25th, 2015. My name is Wilson, and I'm joined today by Randall.
What's up, everybody?
And Lane.
Hey everybody.
The 9001 Podcast is more than games, television shows, referential humor, or expertly crafted puns. Join us as we provide helpful information, news, and commentary on what's happening with your favorite pastimes. If you get the podcast name, we'll get along just fine. If not, why don't you stay a while and listen? Let's get started. Our Ice Climber topic today is some amiibo blues from Smash Bros. Creator Masahiro Sakurai. He cannot find some amiibos he was looking for. I don't know where he was at, but he tweeted that he was looking for some amiibos and couldn't find them.
Sheik, Meta Knight, Lucario, and Rosalina are the ones he fired blanks on.
If you don't know what amiibos are, they're for the new Smash Bros. Game, and they're basically little action figures that they have small in-game effects, right, Lane?
Yeah, of some sort. See, I don't really know what they do in the game. All I know is that you can place them someplace on your Wii or now the new 3DS, and that it will bring them into the game in some way. You know what I really think what they're for is like kids carry them around like this is, you know, my favorite character, and when you get somewhere, you can, if other people have DSs, you know, you put your amiibo up to their DS, and it, like, challenger approaches kind of thing. That's what I think it should do. I have no idea if it does, but that kind of concept makes sense to me. I've never seen one in action. All I know is they make really cool little statues that go on your shelf.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I would buy them. So.
Yeah, and I think Nintendo definitely had that intention when they were going into it. It's like, hey, this can have some sort of cool game effect, I guess, but they're actually statues.
The collectors and stuff will rummage all over that stuff. So.
Foaming at the freaking mouth. And not only that, but Nintendo is tops at the exclusivity game, and they were canceling these freaking things a week after they came out to make people go crazy over them. It was rabid dogs.
The way the amiibos work is they have like NFC technology. So basically that's how you get like kind of that close contact communication between like an amiibo and a 3DS or an amiibo and a Wii U.
Interesting.
So yeah, there's like a little pad on your Wii U gamepad. You can find it just, I don't know, in one of the corners, and that's actually where the NFC reader is.
Are there other games that do this sort of stuff?
I think it's just Nintendo stuff, right?
Well, I mean other games on the console.
I'm not sure if your amiibos go anywhere else. I'm sure they go on, I believe they go maybe with Mario Kart.
I think they work with different games.
Well, okay, are amiibo is the name for everything that Nintendo's going to make that has the NFC chip, or?
Yeah,
that's all of their action figures. Hey. Although Skylanders is like kind of the model that you can look at for previous, you know, kind of action-y figures for games that are just really hot right now.
Wow, so hot right now. God, no.
Get out of my head, Lane.
No,
Jesus
get out of my, jeez.
Oh my.
Anyway, this, not exactly like a hot button thing or something, but seriously, if you like amiibos, you better plan your schedule well and far ahead. Pre-order them or whatever. If you see one you like, just shell it and hope you get it, because those things go so fast.
Oh, I mean, I'm looking like at some prices right now, and they're ridiculous just because they can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only that, but different places are getting different amiibos at different times. Like Target, GameStop, Best Buy, all in the same month will all have 4 different amiibos that they'll have stocked through the whole month.
Oh,
right.
It has like one of the best marketing teams ever, and they're raking it in with these things.
Yeah, I mean, they're creating some crazy demand, and also, like, so Target, their exclusive was Rosalina, and I remember hearing some crazy story, you know, just of somebody who bought, like, all of the Rosalinas in town. I think this may have been in Austin, buying all of them so that nobody else could have the Rosalina figure.
What the crap?
Jeez.
I kind of just want myself a Sonic or maybe a Meta Knight. I'd be happy. Either of y'all have any?
Little Mac.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now, and I made a mistake.
I don't own an amiibo, but I'm not opposed to it. I think I'm just kind of waiting for my moment. I think I missed the initial plunge in, and now I'm scared to go in the pool. I'm not sure how hot the water is.
Yeah, sure. Des already has one. Desi, my girlfriend, she already has one. She has Fox. And, dude, these amiibos are quality. Like,
They're pretty nice.
I think Nintendo really gave it a good bit of thought in that, aspect. These things need to be high quality, and they are very well detailed and very well put together and very well painted even. It's really nice.
I mean, Nintendo's not known to make like low quality shit,
Yeah.
So I'd expect nothing less from them.
It's interesting, sort of, and this spirals off into another conversation entirely, but Nintendo's sort of a bastion of high quality these days when it comes to video games, when we're getting a lot of, stuff like half-baked releases and stuff like that.
Oh,
then
yeah.
we have Smash come out and it's, super polished, super done, super fun, super great. I got to play it at PAX. It was great. The game is awesome and it is very obviously finished. So Nintendo's seemingly a last bastion of hope. Sort of thing. White knighting all over the place.
White Knight, man.
Yeah, and the other thing about amiibos is, like, you can carry your progress on them. So it's like you can have a character that is your version of Mario, your version of whomever. So they can level up and get their own skills and talents and stuff. And that's cool because you can bring your amiibo over to a friend's place and be like, all right, I'm going to wreck your shit.
So it's a freaking save file.
Yeah, there we go. Memory cards have
okay.
been reimagined.
So I can challenge people to duels now?
So it's kind of like
Oh.
what I thought. It's time to do. Okay.
That's another show.
Yeah, I know.
Bring them to the Shadow Realm.
But
See, why don't they have Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments like that Magic tournament at PAX?
Because Magic's first.
Shut up.
yeah, if you didn't know, PAX South happened this weekend. We'll be talking a little more about that later in the show. But Lane and I were both there, so.
But not Randall, gosh.
Yeah, I have things to do. So horrible.
Yeah.
Like this podcast.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, the whole story here is that even the creator of Smash Bros. Is having a hard time getting his hands on a few amiibos, so it's an interesting conundrum for Nintendo.
You wonder, and just the last little aside, you gotta wonder if he doesn't have a way to be like, hey guys, I kinda created this game, can I just get all of them?
He could be trolling a
He
little
might
bit.
be trolling a little bit.
Is
That's
he trolling,
definitely what
or
it seems
was
like.
he asked to say this, or, is this just I
think it's just
know,
poking fun, mostly.
That's true. I mean, I don't know how employee culture works so much over there. Like, do you get the privileges? You made this freaking game. Do you get the privileges that you're like, hey, I made this. Can I possibly get these things to me because they're related to the game? And
I don't know.
because I know it's a little different over there. Everybody's sort of an equal in, at least from what I understand, in the game design culture over there. It's a lot of equals and then like a few head designers and stuff like that all working together. It's a lot tighter than it is over here. We're much looser. It's
Yeah, looser.
way more. It seems like it's more freeform, and this is obviously a half-baked assessment because I mean I'm just mostly just seeing a few documentaries about it and crap like that. But anyway, totally off topic. Anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, if we could get an AMA request from an amiibo scalper, that would be great.
Amiibo scalper.
Yeah, if you're an amiibo scalper, let us know.
Yeah, let us know how you already got into that game.
So we're going to move over to the bulletin board. This is just a section of the show where we collect a bunch of interesting tidbits from around the industry at large and kind of compile them for you guys. And the first one on the list here is The Elder Scrolls Online is going free to play.
Damn.
It's going to drop the monthly fee, and this is going to coincide with the console release. So the big console release on PS4 and Xbox One, the game's going to be free to play.
That's pretty big leap.
Yeah, it's pretty indicative, and I hate that saying something's going to free to play essentially means to everyone that it's failing at this point.
Yeah.
And that's what MMOs have sort of set a precedent for. If we're going free to play, it's because we're not making money anymore. So we need to change something drastically. And it doesn't particularly surprise me that the Elder Scrolls Online is doing that. And I've wanted to try it, but I'm not the biggest fan of Elder Scrolls Online.
No,
And
I think...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I think Elder Scrolls isn't the kind of game that's really meant for multiplayer. Elder Scrolls is a game you're supposed to really delve into yourself and enjoy, and mixing it up with multiplayer, combat and things like that really takes away from it, I think. And that's probably why a lot of people haven't been playing it.
Yeah.
Well, I think on paper, though, that sounds like the ultimate fantasy, right? Not only is it a fantasy where you create your own perfect legend, but you're also interacting with everyone else's. I mean, I think conceptually it makes sense, but to execute that idea means a lot more.
Yes, very much so. And I've heard some interesting things about it, and by heard I mean mostly read. And I've, watched some streams, watched some YouTube videos on it, sort of just tried to do a little homework on it to see, is this something I'd want to play? And I think the answer is probably no, because as you were saying, Randall, the game is honestly, from what I've heard, watched, seen, Skyrim with multiplayer facets. And that's not 100% true, but seriously, the combat in Elder Scrolls Online is almost identical to Skyrim. It's hack and slash and spells. And how does that work in a freaking MMO?
Yeah, it doesn't seem very fun to me.
It doesn't to me either. The big thing would be the adventure aspect. And
that would be
what
a
I've
huge
heard,
thing.
that is one of the places it falls flat the worst. Everything's very drab looking. And, I mean, after games like Skyrim and Morrowind, it's really hard to follow up on that with something that doesn't expand upon it in a meaningful way. And it doesn't really seem like ESO has. So if the real reason these guys go free to play, at least to my knowledge, is that, you're trying to bring in people to the game that were, initially not people who would typically go for it, because free to play has kind of brought along the era of people who don't have to pay to play video games.
Yeah.
So this is a whole another section of people that haven't tried your game that you're trying to bring in. That's really good. They could possibly go places with this, but let's see.
Well, yeah.
Right, and just to add a little more to this, so if you do want to still be a subscriber, you can actually still pay every month after the game goes free to play. Basically, there's going to be an ESO Plus, which has not exactly been specified how much you'll pay yet, but basically you get immediate access to all the DLC packs, exclusive bonuses, and a monthly kind of allowance of crowns, which is like the currency in the game. So there's still kind of a stratification there. You can still subscribe and get some perks. So, one of the dangers with free-to-play games is that they become a pay-to-win mentality. But Bethesda says they'll make their money from selling, obviously, the DLC and also in-game virtual items for convenience and customization. That's kind of scary sometimes
Convenience
because
is a very bad word.
Yeah,
that's pretty scary, and that's in quotes too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not necessarily a bad word because it all depends on the application, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
but
If you played Warframe, and I'm so glad we have a podcast where we can talk about things other than freaking World of Warcraft. If you played Warframe, any of you, Warframe works on a typical resource blueprint, currency system. Like, if you want to get a weapon, say they drop the weapon on whatever day, you can pick two routes. One, you buy it with the real money currency, or you buy the blueprint with the in-game currency. If you buy the blueprint, then you're also committing to building it with like 4 to 5 different resources that you find out in the game world, and 12 to 24 hour build time. And that's annoying, but it's the convenience aspect. And the way that that's implemented is not actually that bad. It ends up working out. And there are other games that have done stuff like that that's good. So it depends on which kind of convenience aspect it is.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to say what they mean by it.
Yeah, if it's like leveling convenience, then we need to get a little concerned. Or, well, not really concerned. We don't need to get concerned. But if it's leveling, then people should be concerned. If it's something like you get this armor a little faster because, maybe it was some sort of higher level, I don't know. It all needs to be implemented very carefully. It's a big point of it.
Yeah, we'll see how they tread. I mean, that's only with time.
Time will
Right.
tell.
And the console release of Elder Scrolls Online will be June 9th, it appears,
I
for
forgot
both the
that
consoles.
was a thing.
So it'll be on Xbox One and PS4. So that'll be interesting to see obviously all of those platforms kind of sync up. I think they will be all together. I'm not totally sure on that, but I imagine
that would be horrible otherwise. It'd just be such a scattered community.
Do you think
Right.
anybody's gonna play it though?
That's the
I'm
the
sure.
thing, though. Like,
I think there are a lot of people who will.
Yeah, but
like
let's say there's not too many. You need as many as possible from each console playing together.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
See,
But I mean, I feel like there are plenty of people who are like, oh, I would pick it up and play it with a friend if it's free.
yeah, and
that's probably
I really like the free-to-play nudge towards consoles. It's starting to happen. It's getting there very slowly. Warframe has seeped into consoles. ESO is here. PlanetSide 2 is coming, and I know there are multiple other titles that are coming. I don't know if Gigantic is a console title. Do you know? If it's not, it probably should be at some point. And we'll talk about Gigantic later. It was something we saw at PAX. But, I love this. I want these things to get into frickin' consoles. I have an Xbox One sitting here and I play the crap out of it. I love it. But there's some free-to-play games that I love just as much. And not having to pay for a game is really awesome. So, more, please.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll be on the lookout for more Elder Scrolls Online info in the coming, several months from here on out.
Yeah.
None of us are active players, but if you play Elder Scrolls Online, be sure to
give us a shout out. Let us know what's up.
chime in.
Maybe we could try it sometime in the future. Just for fun.
Give it like a day run.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oy. I'd probably spend all day just creating my character. That's how it is when I play Elder Scrolls.
Maybe we just hit the randomizer and go, and then post pictures.
That would give me a heart attack. Anyway. So, in other news, the recent ban and restricted announcement has come out for Magic the Gathering, and there have been some changes in the modern format, which are pretty controversial, I guess, or just pretty dynamic.
Ooh, something I have no idea about. Let's go!
So, for those of you who don't play Magic, there's a few formats you can play in Magic. The most well-known are probably Modern, Standard, Legacy, and EDH, I guess. And all of them have staple decks that to play, and these cards can be in upwards of, hundreds of dollars to, dollars, like a few dollars. One of the biggest decks in the modern format has just been basically banned because a card that made it work together has been ousted, Birthing Pod, and it's put people up in arms about it, so.
Yeah, I guess it's just really interesting because so Magic Gathering has a huge following, and the way they kind of structure their modern or like eternal formats, the formats of where you can play the cards that keep coming out and none of your cards are going to get kind of outdated. Well, they still kind of outdate your cards in a sense because whenever a card gets banned, it's no longer playable in competitive setting.
Yeah.
So people will spend, X amount of money to build a deck, but if the main card for that deck gets banned, then all of a sudden they're just stuck with a loose pile of 56 cards and 4 cards that are worth nothing, essentially. It's just really interesting because this plays with, the economy of, Magic cards. So one card will go from being worth, $15 down to $5 or $3 a card just because of an announcement like that. And it won't even be the card that was banned necessarily, but maybe a card that relies on that card.
I think it's something interesting. I'm on the little link that we dropped in the show notes, which will be on the website if you'd like to check them out, which should. On here, it shows the band stuff. It's got a band list and it's got pictures of them. And I look at the pictures, really, really nice art. Yeah, it's really good. And I scroll down to the unbanned area. I'm looking at this Golgari Grave Troll, and that art looks like it's straight out of the 80s. And then you go down a little further, and there's other updates. And World Gorger Dragon and Gifts Ungiven both look like they're straight out of the 80s as well, and that kind of scares me.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, some of the art's older. Magic the Gathering's been around for quite a while.
Not necessarily the fact that there's older art, but the fact that these cards have been banned for so long that the art has frickin' aged. That's insanity, man.
Well, sometimes a card won't get banned for a while too, right?
Yeah.
So Golgari Grave Troll I think it's only been banned for a year or two. I'm not
really sure. I mean, when something gets banned, it feels like forever because it's not played, but it's usually not that long.
Okay.
Just to give a few cards.
Yeah. Instant. That was a knee jerk for sure, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other cards that were banned were Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, and both of these cards kind of relied on a mechanic called Delve, which basically lets you kind of exile cards from your graveyard to pay the mana cost, which I guess just was too abusive.
It was really abusive because in the modern format, there's a lot of really what are called low drop cards. Basically, you can play cards without having to spend too much mana, so you can play a lot of them. And you don't really need those cards once they hit the graveyard anymore. Give, a few special effects. And so they're basically free mana that you can use, and you use like a card like Dig Through Time, and you fill up your hand again, and you're just overwhelmed the person you're playing against.
Is this in a blue deck? Because I see they have blue backgrounds.
Yeah, these are both blue cards. They tend to be played in decks that run blue, obviously.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I really don't know that much. But
usually multicolored, though.
Yeah, there's not many monocolored in Modern.
Oh, okay.
Not really.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of find just a really interesting similarity, in my opinion, with, the ban list in Magic, and also like kind of nerfs and buffs that you see in any kind of competitive game.
Oh.
Right? Like League of Legends, for example. Right?
Yeah.
Like, a champion will be like totally flavor and good to go for, a certain patch or something, and you're like, oh my god, like, Jin Zhao is just totally overpowered right now, and then sure enough, he gets nerfed like a week or two later, or whatever. I just think it's really interesting that those commonalities go from a card game to the most competitive esport in the world.
Yeah. Even deeper, I think, that you see ones unbanned after a while.
Yep.
Basically just saying that, hey, the stuff that was popular with this is no longer meta enough for this to matter, almost. And I mean, that's not always going to be the case, but like Golgari Grave Troll, I have no idea what that guy brought to the table that got him banned, but if obviously it's not important enough to have him, banned anymore. So either something came along that completely screwed over his strategy, or something came along that, just completely destroyed the meta he was in. And that's how meta. It's all about the meta game of the game. And
how meta are you? That's what it ultimately comes down to.
Oh no.
This is what really makes games like this so addicting, I think, for some of us. Specifically me, I love League of Legends because the metagame is shifting so often. It's always interesting to think about, like, who could be next? Who could be the next flavor of the month? Why is this person strong right now? Why is this person weak right now? What do we need to do to make this work? And that's why League of Legends is super interesting to me, specifically. And Magic the Gathering is so big and so deep that it has the same freaking characteristics, and that's ridiculous.
Better not touch it, Lane.
I'm not gonna touch it with a 10 million foot pole. Y'all can have my white deck if y'all want. It's chilling at home. I don't know if white decks are worth the crap, but you can have it.
It's basically a starter pack.
Yeah, it was a starter pack.
We'll talk about that later.
Right.
But basically,
later.
So Huey goes on in the article that we're talking about, or the article that we're linking you guys to, that has some other good commentary about these bans and unbans, but he doesn't feel like this unbanning of the Golgari Grave Troll is really going to do anything. So I think that goes in line with kind of Lane's sentiments of, the meta doesn't really account for that anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
But
sorry,
we're going to go ahead and move over to our bigger topic for the bulletin board, and this is PAX South. So Penny Arcade Expo has announced and has already had their first edition of PAX South, which is, it's in between PAX East and PAX Prime in San Antonio, Texas. So what were your first impressions, Lane?
It was awesome. I really loved going there and being around tons of other people who obviously just were like there to soak in everything, which was really interesting. Something I didn't really know about PAX is that had a couple, maybe like 3 rooms dedicated to nothing other than people just like go chill and play games. And like I knew they had the bring your own computer in the PC room and stuff, but I did not know about the console room. And for anybody out there who doesn't know what it is, it's literally just a room with a bunch of consoles, and by bunch I mean like 100 different consoles, maybe like 200 different consoles strapped to tables with a frickin' TV, and you can go up to the front desk, and you obviously have to take a number because there were so many people there. It was packed. You had to take a number, and when they call your number, you can ask for a game. Take that game to a console, you can play it for a blank amount of time. Super cool. And I had a good time just going in there and walking around, watching what people were playing. People were playing like old school Naruto games, like the second fighting game on GameCube. I watched some people playing like singing games, and I think it might be called Chrome Hounds. The whatever the game was on Xbox that came with the big dual joystick controller that it was really famous for. It had pedals and a huge control pad, and I'm talking really big, like a good 4 feet across, and it had an entire setup of that like 10 of those set up there so people could just play that in, a multiplayer setting. It was a lot of fun to be around that. That said, there was not specifically a disparity of, big names there. There weren't a lot of them though. There were some smaller names there that had some really interesting showings, I think. And that's stuff like, Greybox, which we'll talk about in just a bit. Twitch also had a really big, they're not small, obviously, but they had a really great booth. A lot of cool stuff there. Gigantic, which is from someone I cannot ever remember the name of. We'll talk about Motiga, there you go. Yeah, I signed up for that alpha, by the way, and I hope I get into it. It looks really fun. They had like some of the biggest booths there. And then, other than that, there weren't a lot of other big names, really. Riot wasn't there, which kind of surprised me, to be honest, but, pretty much any other big name you could think of really wasn't there. But that gave a lot of room for a lot of homegrown stuff to come in too. And so next year what I think is going to end up happening is that they're going to have to expand the expo hall, probably going to get rid of that magic area and put it somewhere else and make that whole thing the expo hall, like the back half, the indie / homegrown stuff. And then hopefully, now that everybody's seen how freaking successful this was, because I think it was packed. Now that they've seen how successful it was, all the big name stuff might start flowing in a little more, and we'll get a full-on PAX. Because this one, while it was definitely great, didn't feel so much like an expo of, all different kinds. It was some newer stuff from some unknowns, at least to me. But that was still really cool. What do you think, Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I agree in some ways. I enjoyed it. I definitely am looking forward to next year's PAX South. I think that in some ways, it's kind of hard to shake this is, having a PAX conference in the middle of the country for the sake of it almost. Like, it was kind of like, let's get as many people as we can just to make it happen. And they made it happen, but because they didn't have kind of that wow factor, I think, unless the Gigantic goes on to become, like this really crazy game, and even then it will only be in hindsight that, it was, a huge big name there. Obviously, there were some names at the event. BioWare and Gearbox had their own rooms
they had
rented
their
out.
own rooms, and
they had stuff all day.
I sort of hated that, but Sid sort of didn't. It's really cool that they have their own rooms, but I wish they had been out on the expo floor as well, because that's like the place where people go to see that stuff. They want to see what they have to offer, and they didn't. That's the thing. They didn't really have anything new to offer. They just had their normal stuff. But that was really cool. Did you visit either of them or both of them? Yeah,
I kind of swung by. I kind of peeked in the BioWare room for a little while.
I actually went by the Gearbox one multiple times, and Gearbox really has their stuff to a science, because they also added in their community playdate that they do every year. And by the way, spoiler alert or whatever, I live pretty dang close to Gearbox's main headquarters, and every year they do a community playdate at their headquarters. It's a pretty big building, and people just go out there and gather and have a good time. They held that at PAX this year, and I think they did that, obviously. I think PAX was like, hey, we're coming to a city sort of near you guys. Would you mind doing that, but maybe up the attending numbers a little bit? I think it worked out really well, and the room was honestly really awesome. In fact, when Desi and I went to the room, we sat down, and they had what they were calling not musical chairs, which is basically just in between every little panel they did, they called out a chair number and gave a prize away. And we sat down at the end of one of them. We're watching. It was really cool. And the first thing they called was her number, and so she got a free shirt out of it. It was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a good time all around, I think. Good first showing.
I just think that the show floor could have been upgraded a little more.
Yeah.
And it would have been great to have had some kind of, just that wow factor I think you expect from a large con.
And I almost feel bad for saying that, because obviously it's the first time, but it's also, at the same time, it's PAX. So I'm not sure if that was a missed opportunity on some of the people they had there, and they just didn't get into that room, like BioWare and Gearbox, or if they just needed to prove themselves first. And we'll get to see this next year, and if this podcast is still running next year, hopefully it will, fingers crossed, then we'll let you know. But until then, it's sort of up in the air. We'll see.
Right. And I think that, you had a really strong point earlier, just with the fact that I think the turnout was pretty large. The the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center in San Antonio is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's pretty spaced out.
Holy crap.
There were still a lot of people there, and I don't know what the ticket sales were like. But, you know, you brought up that point that, you know, now that people see that there's a serious turnout, maybe we'll have some bigger names. It's kind of sad that the first year has to be used kind of as a guinea pig, but, you know, people's money has to be protected. So it's just interesting to see that there, you know, I mean, at least in my social media network, a lot of people I know were very excited to go, you know, just from a consumer standpoint. Now, I don't think this is the type of event where you're going to go and make a lot of game development, you know, connections really.
Yeah,
Obviously you can still meet people. There are going to be people that may be able to help you at this event, but it's not geared towards, I mean, it's a PAX. It's not geared towards the developers in any way really. It's more about the games, the players who play games, which is awesome. I think it's great that, you know, the community in kind of the middle of the country has, you know, this place to go now, hopefully.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to hold it in San Antonio next year, or do you think they might move it to somewhere like Dallas? Because it initially surprised me that it was in San Antonio.
I mean, in my opinion, it's Austin's the pick, just because of, you know, the strong, well, they have such a strong independent game development scene.
They really do.
And, you know, one of the things I've heard is that, oh, well, San Antonio has the better infrastructure, and I've read some things that kind of hint that maybe that was the reason why, that the city itself could handle the event better. But I mean, Austin takes care of ACL. Austin handles South by Southwest. It's a city that's capable of it, but I think that San Antonio is very accommodating too. Yes. They do a good job of taking care of their tourists, sometimes at the detriment of their own people, I think. But
absolutely. I mean, the Riverwalk is pretty big, and it's grown to a pretty big thing. And if you didn't know what the Riverwalk is, it's basically this long river that runs through San Antonio that is chock full of shops, ducks, boats, people, and all sorts of different places to eat. And it's pretty much just it's a major tourism attraction. When I was young, I went there 2 or 3 times before I was even 10, just because my parents went there, and we didn't live near there. We had to drive, 6 hours to get there. But I think personally that the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center was excellent for it. That place it was a really nice looking place. I don't know what it was about it. It just had a really good feel. Everything felt, while it was sort of spread out, it felt natural after the first day. The first day was a little confusing, but they had signs and stuff. Like, they obviously know what they're doing. It's their 4th PAX a year. But I think a Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center was pretty dang perfect for it. Everything worked out really well in that respect. And I'm really hoping things get even ramped up. And we already said that, obviously. But, I mean, seriously, Riot was there. They had a 5-person panel of designers there to have a talk. So they could have done something if they wanted to. They may just have not wanted to this season.
Well, it may have been expensive too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, taking out show floor space it's not going to come free. So
yeah, and obviously
there's another consideration.
I don't really know how it works, which way. Like, does PAX say, hey, would you like to come chill on our show floor? Or does Riot say, hey, we want to come chill on your show floor?
I think it's kind of a mutually beneficial thing, but I'm sure PAX kind of has a newsletter that they send out to everyone who's kind of, major league and says, hey, we're, this is kind of our price range, and obviously there's a huge event coordinator team that, gets it all together and gets the show floor plans.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, though, you are kind of renting out space.
Mm-hmm. And
just because it's a spotlight, it's a press event.
Yes, and that's absolutely true because, PAX is not super famous for, but semi-famous for at least a few announcements. At least a few good announcements have come out of there in the past. Surprising amount of dealers out there to me. I didn't think there would be as many dealers as there were.
For merchandise?
Yeah, merch dealers. There were a lot more than I thought there would be.
Right, yeah, I think I felt like one of the things I could have done the most at PAX was spend money.
Yeah.
There was a lot of merchandise.
Oh yeah. It was.
Loot Crate was there. Rooster Teeth.
That is Rooster Teeth. Yeah, we bought stuff from Rooster Teeth. it was really good seeing them there. And there was there was a dice store.
Yep, I bought some dice.
There was a large group of tabletop stuff going on there too. I think the whole Magic thing, and I hope they do that again in the future too, by the way, because it looked like it was very popular. That whole place was full.
Yeah, there was a lot of Magic the Gathering going on.
Yeah, right behind the expo hall there was another sort of hall full of tables and chairs and Magic the Gathering, and that was it. And it was totally full most of the time. And
Right.
the thing I liked most about it is that it seemed to take all those little separate things, all the separate things about this culture, almost what this freaking podcast is about, and slam it all into one, like, congealed ball. And it was cool just to have everybody together just appreciating all that stuff at the same time. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it was nice. It was just nice being around all those people and being able to walk into a room with people just playing video games, walk around and have nostalgia everywhere. It was nice. It was good. I liked it. Randall, you still alive?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just making sure.
He's still good. Yeah, I think it was interesting. And obviously, walking around seeing everyone in cosplay and all the furries, just, you see all these people who have similar interests as you. Maybe the furries part, maybe not. But, it's cool to be like, oh, like, all these people are going to get the reference that's about to, happen on stage or whatever.
Yeah.
You feel kind of at home. And also at the same time, you're like, there are a lot of people. So sometimes you're like, oh my god, I have to wait 3 hours to watch like a 10-second cutscene that I'll see here in about 2 months.
Yeah, I didn't get to play Evolve, and I really wanted to, but the Logitech line was out. But I did get to do an interview with Adam Sessler, which, sounds odd. Like, what are they interviewing me for? Logitech was having this little thing where they just interviewed people that use Logitech products, and I personally have a little Logitech G13 left-handed gaming pad. I love the thing to death, and I got to talk to Adam Sessler, and other girl's name escapes me all the time. I can't ever freaking remember her first name. And they just basically interviewed me. There's a video out there in the world if you want to search for it. Just type Logitech Lane Lewis and you can find it if you particularly want to.
All right, we may even include it in the show notes. Who knows?
Oh god. Okay.
We'll see about that. But anyway, I wanted to move over to another kind of topic within PAX South, and this is kind of something that's starting to bother me actually. But it's like the way video game journalism works is that there's always hype about announcements and stuff, and in PAX South is no exception. People were expecting some announcements, some big, things that were supposed to happen at PAX South, and the two that I thought were really interesting, and this is just because they were floating around from news sources on the web, were Borderlands 3 and Fallout 4 announcements, and that neither of those happened at PAX, but you can still find news articles that are like, oh, Borderlands 3 perhaps to be announced at PAX. Let's stay tuned until the last possible second. It's just it's really interesting that, we have to have that type of extreme announcement accompany every event. And I mean, it's something I talked about, that there has to be that wow factor, but It's just crazy that the journalists have to go that far too.
Randall, you got anything on this, seeing as you've been out of it for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, before the podcast started, we were looking for, good topics to talk about, something to keep everyone interested. And I was trying to find something, and I kept seeing things about Borderlands 3 and Fallout 4, and, every one was just, speculation and just horrible hype that was almost non-existent and made no sense at all. And it was just a waste of my time, and it sucks that, there are other people looking at these things and trying to find answers, and they just find all this clutter.
Literal baseless rumors.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing I think about all of this is that it's literally a development of how, the sort of game culture sort of pre-order, I don't want to call it pre-order culture because I hate that, but I mean, pre-ordering has literally created a world where hype, outruns everything. And before the game comes, before the reviews come, before the screenshots come, before anything about the game comes, the hype comes. The hype is always first, and everything has to be about hype until the game releases. And this is for every freaking major release these days, and it didn't quite used to be like that. I mean, we used to get excited, play the next Halo or whatever, but holy crap, dude. This is extremely evident in games like Watch Dogs, in games like Halo Master Chief Collection. We go out there and I bought the Master Chief Collection. I pre-ordered that crap because I was nostalgizing all over the place. The hype was insane. And we all got screwed. Hype is the thing. Hype has literally turned everything into mush. It's really hard to comprehend for me sometimes. Hype is too much, man.
Yep. It really is.
So we're approaching a critical mass of hype, I think.
Yes. Super critical mass.
And it may just deflate too. Who knows? This could be the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and I mean, they were literally just rumors that, that Gearbox was going to announce. The Borderlands 3 is the one that I heard about. And, what they said actually was, we'd be ready to work on it if, what was it, Randall?
Basically, if they thought they could do the game justice, that they could really live up to their own standards was the whole thing.
The thing that they actually announced is that they were hiring to put together a team to make it. So, there you go.
Right. Yeah, I think they just kind of teased it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I think somebody probably asked the question. I think it was in a Q&A panel, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't even that they planned on it, but somebody of course asked, and then he kind of let a little bit out. And there was some press around, so.
That's one.
Yep.
Anyway, I wanted to kind of just go down and talk about maybe what your best game and show was, Lane. Like, what title are you kind of looking forward to most? I know we haven't talked about all the games, but this might be a time we can kind of talk about something that are some of the games that are sticking out to you.
Okay, sure. Well, I didn't get to really play many of the games there because holy crap, lines. But the first thing you walk into when you walk on the expo floor is a big old booth by the company Greybox, and I didn't even know who the heck they were until I got there. But now, with PAX, they're starting to get a good amount of hype for the two games that they're making or that they were showcasing, which were Dreadnought and Grey Goo. And the one I am particularly hyped for there is Dreadnought. And I have a couple ones that I really like the look of, but Dreadnought is the first one I can think of and the most memorable because to me it hits a real chord because I am into stuff like MechWarrior Online, just MechWarrior in general, the whole game. The big lumbering pilotable thing that shoots really big guns. And Dreadnought is literally a game where you pilot Dreadnought cruisers, like space cruisers, with big frickin' guns over big battlefields with different classes. Concept's great. Yeah, it's a great concept, and if they execute on it correctly, could be great. My other one, and I think Gigantic gets a mention from here too, just because, I mean, it's essentially a third-person MOBA with a twist on it, and I love that idea, and I've heard good things about it so far, so if I get any alpha, I'll let you know. Anyway, the other one for me would be, I don't know if you saw this one, Wilson, but it was Star Mazer. Did you see that?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's not really describable. It's sort of just a pixel art game where you play as this dude who is very akin to Space Dandy, except with blonde hair and way more rugged. And, he has the whole getup with laser and kind of a blonde pompadour and a cigar. And that aesthetic hits such a chord with me, man. It's stupid. But yeah, those are my two.
Oh man. Well, for me, one of the games that kind of caught me for a loop, just because I hadn't really heard anything about it, was Eve Valkyrie.
Yeah.
So this is like a multiplayer dogfighter. It was at the Intel booth. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I did a little more research afterwards.
I was about to ask you, did you get to use the Oculus one?
I wanted to get my hands on it, but it uses the Oculus, and it's just really interesting because obviously EVE Online is, it's got a pretty good following, and this is an offshoot of the universe as far as I know. I mean, it's still set in the EVE universe, but it's an offshoot game. It's not EVE Online. It's a dogfighter, and it uses Oculus Rift, and I think it's going to use the PS4's version, or Sony's version of that too, if I'm not mistaken. I
actually remember this Valkyrie was a thing, I think almost 2 years ago. The EVE guys, some sort of code jam maybe, came up with a dogfighting module essentially for their game, and it ended up catching on so well with the EVE fan base that they decided to make a whole game around it. And it's actually interesting, what's the company that makes EVE?
CCP?
Yeah, CCP. They have sort of shown this, want and willingness to take risks when it comes to EVE in the way of, we want to expand EVE out of just the EVE Online game into a dogfighting game, into a ground war game, and they're going to use those things to influence the MMO. That's their whole idea. They want to make a collage essentially of interlocked games, and I think that's a freaking awesome idea, and I hope that I hope it pans out. Fingers crossed.
So yeah, Eve Valkyrie, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, and it's going to be on Project Morpheus. I'd forgotten the name of the PS4 VR headset, but there you go.
Morpheus. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a game that stuck out to me. You know, I wasn't totally blown away by really any of the games that I saw or had a chance to play, but I did play a game by Jason Rohr, and it's been out for a little bit. It's called Cordial Minuet, and basically, I mean, it's basically a gambling game is the way I think about it, but you have kind of a bets phase where you bet money and then you kind of pick different columns and rows of a grid. It looks kind of like a bingo board, and you're playing against an opponent in real time, so somebody across the table from you or either across the net from you if you're playing online, but it's kind of like online poker in some ways, but basically you gamble and you pick a different row of numbers, and the way it works is each row or column actually adds up to the same number, but you kind of have to pick a row, and then your opponent picks a row, or two rows rather, you each pick two, and these numbers kind of line up in different ways such that if you intersect, you deny your opponent from getting that number.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's a little weird, but basically, it's a two-player gambling game based around a 6x6 magic square with rows, columns, and diagonals totaling to 111.
Good God, okay.
Definitely sounds like a games game, you know. Not a lot of... It's not how we talk about games now as much.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
It's very gamey, but the crazy thing was, and this is really what I liked about kind of the way he went about this, was one, he was in the booth and he was there, and Jason Rohr is he's a bit of a game design influence. If you look up his track record online, he's just been responsible for a few games that have garnered some attention, like Passage, some kind of like indie games, if you will. But anyway, this game is kind of cool because, or the presentation they had at PAX was cool because they had a tent. It was the only tent I saw in there.
That. Okay. I was trying to remember where this was. Gotcha.
It was like a shady, like very poorly lit tent with this like inscription, like a glyph, like some language that wasn't real even on the side. And you're just like, what the heck is in there? And people would kind of like would walk by and kind of look and peek in because there were people in there, but you didn't know what the heck they were doing. And when you walk in, there are about 4 seats and there are 4 people playing games. And at the head of the table is Jason Rohr. And he's sitting there with like a stack of $1 bills in his hand, kind of spinning them. He's like, hey, come on in. And you go in, and he asks you if you want to play a game, and he explains the game to you, and you just bet some money. And if you don't bet money, he's going to throw $1 at you and make you bet one of his dollars, and you can keep it for free. The souvenir at this booth was $1 with either the game's website or a stamp of the game's symbols on the dollar bill that also lined up with the symbols that you see on the back of a dollar bill, the diamond and the eagle. It was just, or the pyramid rather. It was just I thought that he really took his booth to the next level without a lot of, it's a pretty cheap booth if you think about it.
Next level boothing right there.
So yeah, and I don't know, I guess just to add a little more, so Jason Rohr also worked on, I think it was a Kickstarter project called The Diamond Trust of London. Mm-hmm. And this was a game that went out on the 3DS, and I think it's the only game on the 3DS that's been made by an indie American studio, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, Cordial Minuet's been out for a little while, but it was just interesting to play it in person with Jason Rohr there, kind of pitching it, because I didn't even recognize him either, just because I'd only ever seen pictures of him when he had hair, and I was like, who is this shady dude? What's going on here? And so sure enough, I ended up betting money, and I won like a boss. So anyway, that's my other game that kind of stuck out to me, and I think there's some sketchy server where you can go sign up and I think you pay at least $2 at minimum, and you can go gamble money with other people on the web.
Wow.
So, Anyway, do that at your own risk. So
Randall,
any other last...
Randall, did you have a favorite at the show?
Yeah, Lane. My favorite was my Calculus 3 assignment that I did this weekend. It was really interesting. It had to do with vectors. That was a pretty fun one.
Oh, man.
Some lines. There was a triangle involved. I think it was a pyramid, actually. It was 3-dimensional. But
really? I can't wait to play that, dude. Sounds great.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a very intellectual game. It's for the sophisticated man. So.
Yes.
Well, speaking of anticipation, we'll be waiting with that for the next PAX South. I think that there's a ways to go, but I think there's a lot of potential for future offerings of the event.
Potential.
So at this point, we're going to move over to 9001. This is a section of the show where we kind of have a more lengthy discussion where we may be at odds with each other. sparring, if you will. And today's topic for 9001 is kind of our anticipated games for 2015. I know we're already 25 days into the year, but I think there's still time to speculate on which games we're looking forward to most. So I guess I'll kick us off. I'm looking forward to Splatoon, which is coming out on the Wii U.
It's basically a kid's version of a shooter. Kind of Gears of War meets like Play-Doh.
Yep.
That's what I think about in my head.
Any other hate, Lane? You got something for me?
I don't have any hate. Yeah, no. I definitely don't hate it, but I would be very surprised if this made any splashes other than, oh, cool, a
splash
third-person paintball gun thing.
For me, this is Nintendo's esport. This is going to be their esport.
You really think it's going to be that big? Do you believe
I played it
that much?
Dude, it is the hype. When I played it at E3, it was so much fun. I haven't had that much fun playing at a game in a while, and I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, it took kind of that addictive element you could find from playing like Call of Duty for the first time and kind of reimagined it. And it's in terms that is universally accessible. Like there's no, it doesn't have to use the blanket of war to explain why you're doing this. It's just about territory control with the paint that you spread on the ground. And whoever has the most paint on the ground at the end of the game wins. And that's all there is to it. I think the best part about the game is that whenever you play it, no matter how you play, whether or not you're like an assassin or you're just running around throwing paint on the ground the entire game, you're still contributing to your team's success.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a cool idea, and we'll have to see how it pans out. If it turns into an esport, I will give you $1.
You got to buy him like the most expensive amiibo. That's the deal. You heard it here.
No.
Oh boy.
No, not doing that.
I'm getting a Splatoon amiibo.
I'll buy you the cheapest amiibo. There you go.
You'll get me the Splatoon amiibo. I like that.
Pretty soon the cheapest amiibo will be like $100, so good luck.
Randall, what's your most look forward to game?
I'm a big fan of the Demon Souls games, now Dark Souls. I'm really looking forward to Bloodborne. I hope that they're not trying to ride their own hype out, because they're just basically making a game genre of their own in a way, or they have, very difficult kind of gritty RPG meets action sort of thing. With lots of risk involved. You can't just die and come back kind of thing. Like you die, there are repercussions for it.
Isn't there a more definitive main character too, in comparison to some of the other games?
Yeah, I think so. Like the other games are, you kind of mold your own character in a lot of ways, I guess. Or in some ways. I mean, I think there's a little bit of, there's
it's
a small
more
amount of backstory,
horror.
but yeah, and this one's more horror, yeah.
Okay.
Than the other ones were. I mean, you could call Dark Souls and Demon Souls a little horror because they're undead type things, and
they're spooky. I mean, they're definitely not.
3 spooky 5 me, right? Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Bloodborne, though, they're adding guns into this one and a few other mechanics from the looks of it. It looks a little faster paced than the other Dark Souls, possibly. The other Dark Souls are pretty slow. You gotta take your time, really think about how you're gonna attack something. This one makes it a little more trigger happy, and maybe it'll appeal to a larger audience because of that. So, we'll see. I'm really looking forward to it, though. I hope they're not just trying to, ride their hype train, like I said earlier.
So does that mean you're getting a PS4?
I just stole Wilson's.
Oh, never mind. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, now you need to get an Xbox One and we'll be all good.
Yeah,
no,
maybe
not doing that
sometime.
Yep.
Well, Lane, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
I've got, just like with the best of show kind of thing, I've got a couple, but I think, well, you know what? We'll just go with one.
Pick one.
Mine is going to be The Division, and if you don't know what this is a third-person shooter, open world exploration game set in post-apocalyptic New York. Could be literally the biggest fuck up of all time if it does not work. And that sucks. If it works, this game could be freaking amazing. And this, God, I don't even know what to think, really. Ubisoft game, and Ubisoft has shown their complete ineptitude at making games that actually give a fuck about how they come out. So I really don't know what to think anymore. But I'm hoping so desperately that this game doesn't just suck a rock, man. I want it to be so good. I want it to be the shooter looter that I wanted Destiny to be, but Destiny's still good. I'm not picking on Destiny necessarily. I want Division to be the exploration and wonder I wanted Destiny to be in third person with all my friends, just like Destiny is. And if it is, then it's gonna be freaking amazing.
I mean, it can't be as big a fuck up as the Master Chief Collection, so you've got that going for you.
Heyo.
True. Yeah. But I'm definitely not pre-ordering crap. It's going to be sitting on that shelf for at least a day before I buy it, and then I'll go for it.
There you go, smart man.
You're doing the world a good by not pre-ordering.
Yeah, pre-ordering, so stupid, man. I can't.
I hate that there's such a market around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may have to do a separate 9001 about the goods and bads of pre-ordering.
You know what?
The good, the bad, and the pre-ordering.
If I wanted to be like a jerk,
Yeah.
still get away with it, I could probably just pre-order it and then not pick it up until like the last possible second after all the reviews have come in and everybody's figured out whether or not it's broken, and then I go and get it. But I'm not gonna do that.
So, this is also a Tom Clancy game, right? That's another consideration here.
It's a Tom Clancy game, and I've had some good experiences with Tom Clancy games in the past. Not everybody, but a lot of people played Rainbow Six, Vegas. I played End War. I don't know if anybody else played that game, but I played Tom Clancy's End War, which was a freaking strategy game where you could control it with your mic. Like, you could use voice commands, and back then that just blew my freaking mind. And that game was super fun. I don't know if anybody else played it, but it was really fun.
You're probably the only one.
Probably.
Well, that's The Division, I guess.
Is it?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just so skeptical, man. I want it to be good, but I just can't trust Ubisoft.
I think that's most games, though, at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And this is gonna be an interesting couple of years right here. We have set a precedent of crap games, or great games, coming out and looking like utter crap. So,
But we still buy them.
Yeah, but we still buy them. So this is the turnaround or screw ourselves forever couple of years right here. We can either stop putting up with this crap, and I'm not trying to be an activist here because obviously it's not quite like that. We can try our best to stop this crap from happening over and over again, which it may or may not happen. We'll see. Or we can just suck it up and deal with broken games forever. And I don't particularly want to, have to question whether or not my games are going to be working on launch Master Chief Collection. God.
Yeah, that's so horrible. I can't believe that something like that would be released.
It still doesn't work. Seriously, the multiplayer still takes.
And they're trying to like add new content instead of fix that now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're still trying to fix it, but.
Well, it's different teams, or different members of the team, so there's another consideration.
People have left and stopped working on it. There's gonna be a point where they just stop working on it and it's still not gonna be fixed. You literally collected all of the best things about Halo into one area and then screwed it up in the stupidest way you possibly could. The matchmaking for all these games has already been written, done for you. Like, you made Halo 4, 343. You made that game. It had perfectly fine matchmaking. What is so difficult, and I hate saying this, like, I don't know what's so difficult about it. I'm not a coder. I don't know why it's difficult.
Well, there may be some legacy code they're dealing with from Bungie that just isn't scaling. So, I mean, it's hard to dig in there.
You write it. Like, there are other options here other than releasing a game that does not work at all. And it's not just like the legacy code specifically. Halo 4 didn't even work right. They removed that thing from the playlist the third day it was out because, like, we need to reduce these playlists because, people are taking 45 minutes to get a freaking game. I can rant about this for hours, man.
Well, also just remember, like, they're also under some kind of artificial...
Yes, that is...
pressure coming from publisher side, so it's not all their fault.
Definitely, but regardless of, like, what the issue was, it's going to be represented by them, and people are going to see that they made the game, and if it's not up to the standards of the people that bought it, they have the right to be upset.
And 100%, no matter whose fault it is, it's fucking unacceptable.
Exactly.
Do not sell this product. It is not a working, functioning product, and it is the only game I have ever bought where I physically was just driven to the point of anger that I bought it. Like, I've bought some terrible games. I don't know if you've ever played, I've played Fracture. You probably have no idea what that is because with a third-rate, third-person shooter with some gimmick stuff in it, I played that. It was crap. I played it. I didn't care. I got in a bargain bin, whatever. I paid $60 for this not working piece of shit to sit on my shelf for the rest of my Xbox One's life. And it's gonna do that. I may never put it in again. I don't think I have the patience to sit there and wait for 20 minutes to play a game when I could just put in my freaking Xbox 10 minutes, plug in Halo 4, and be playing that in 3.
And as gamers, we shouldn't accept mediocrity for our games either.
Yeah.
You know, stuff happens.
Well, I gotta be careful here.
I mean, sometimes, stuff's gonna happen. But when a major company does something like this extreme, I mean, I've heard a lot of people up in arms about it. It's not just one or two people.
Yeah.
It's a large issue.
I mean, yeah, well, the way you do it is just, I think they are actually giving out refunds too, right, for some folks.
They were for the digital people, and I have no idea if anybody who bought the physical game could return it. I know that the digital people could request returns.
Right. I know they've come out and apologized, and
yes.
They're still. They're just developers are human beings. Like,
I'm not.
There's only so much they can do.
I'm not I'm not guessing what their moral standards are. I just want to avoid the entitled gamer thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be entitled. I'm just saying, if you want a good product, it's okay to want a good product.
Yeah. And this only really pushes my buttons because it's happened so many freaking times this year.
And Master Chief Collection was touted pretty heavily.
Yes.
Everybody knew about the Master Chief Collection.
Everybody knew about it. Everybody was hyped for it. Everybody was ready for it. Then it comes out and it falls on its face. It is definitely the hallmark of last year. It is like last year in a game. And that saddens me a lot because that's not the stuff we buy. That's not what we do. We're not here to test your games for you. And that's I need to cool down a little bit because I'm going to start throwing random crap insults.
Let's breathe in and out, Lane.
Well, anyway,
all I want is
a
freaking Halo game. That's all I wanted from it, and I got $60 of fucking plastic sitting on my shelf. That's what I got.
That is sad.
It is depressing.
Well, Halo 5's coming out, and that's another game that we kind of have in our kind of honorable mentions here for anticipated games.
So I don't know if either of you played this, but I actually played this, and it was actually really fun. It was enjoyable. Yeah, Halo 5. It's very different from the typical Halo game. Yeah, it's a lot more run and gun, not necessarily run and gun. It's a lot faster paced than all the Halo games because of the different mobility options that they've added to the game. They essentially turn you from a walking, tank, I guess, more like a freaking bookshelf. You were like a walking bookshelf. You just run into walls and couldn't jump on stuff and had to crouch whatever. They essentially took you from that and turned you into a living, breathing human being who could grab things and go places and run. Pretty crazy, right? It changed a lot of things about the game, but it was really enjoyable too. So, the success of 343 and the Halo series literally hinges on whether or not Halo 5 works at launch. It works, and it's an okay game, they'll be fine. If it comes out and it's the best game of all time and it doesn't work, they're done.
Well, it'll be bad. There's always some cushion money laying around with a publisher.
It's not like the money thing. It's just that Halo's legacy is going to be
tarnished.
Crap in the end. And
they'll definitely lose a lot of credibility if subsequent or sequential kind of poor releases like that.
343 is not really that proven yet. They've made a game. They made one okay game, which was Halo 4. And that was universally regarded as alright. And then Master Chief Collection. So this is their moment. They need to nail it. Yourself.
Yeah, for sure. The other game, well, I guess we got two games here, but one of the other games that we were considering, or that I'm interested in at least, is No Man's Sky.
Yeah. I haven't seen as much about this as I want. Go ahead and explain it, please.
Right, so it's an adventure game by Hello Games. I don't know if they have much of a track record, but basically it's supposed to feature a totally procedurally generated universe for players to explore and upgrade a character and their own starship that they have. And all the visuals for the game are super good looking.
Stylized and awesome.
Yeah. And it just seems like there's a very diverse set of environments that you're going to be exploring. And anytime you hear procedurally generated, there's always a catch with that normally. But, this game claims to be
full on procedurally generated.
Right, pretty infinite.
The only other thing on their their website that it says they've done is something called Joe Danger. And it's Joe Danger SE, Joe Danger 2 the movie, Joe Danger Touch, Joe Danger PC, Joe Danger PS Vita, Joe Danger Infinity, and then No Man's Sky.
Alright, well, Joe Danger is a side-scroller with racing and platforming elements.
Yeah, it looks pretty fun, actually.
So, anyway, No Man's Sky is a huge departure from that, so maybe this is more of a pet project or more of a passion project.
Like, their website, it almost looks a little off with that, because Joe Danger, if you go to their website, it's got kind of a bubbly, like smiling star and a smiling square and a smiling other shape and an astronaut smiling, and then everything's Joe Danger except for No Man's Sky. And we don't really know what the tone of No Man's Sky is, but it's sort of ominous. This website does not look ominous at all.
Yikes.
I mean,
yeah, it's kind of interesting.
No Man's Sky definitely sounds like it's going to be a real hot game.
Wow.
Where are you going with that?
I mean, it's just going to be, it's going to be really hot. Really hot right now.
It's going to be hot right now?
Yeah.
It's pretty hot right now.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I had a huge showing at E3 this year. That was one of the reasons why I remember it comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I think so at E3 it kind of won the best original game and best independent game by the game critics that were there. So, I don't know, we'll have to see. Anytime you hear procedurally generated, there's always a catch.
Yep. And a little saddening that's not coming out on Xbox, but it is coming out on PC and PS4, so that's pretty good.
There you go. And then it should be 2015, so the other, and if not, then we lose. But the other game that I'm interested in, and I think that, if you've seen anything about it, it's definitely caught your eye, is Zelda for Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're calling it, some people have kind of called it Skyrim Zelda in terms of not only game design, but how it looks.
It's funny, that's not the only game to kind of go off that kind of style. We have The Witcher doing that too now. Kind of transitioning from a more linear path to
freaking open world. Open world is the dying fad at the moment. Not really necessarily dying, but I think it's fallen off a little bit. But it is the thing and has been the thing for seemingly a few years now.
Right. Well, this is also Nintendo we're dealing with here, who is not notorious for their their own internal open world games.
Oh no. Yeah, I think this is almost the first, right? We're pretty close to.
Maybe Mario games, sort of?
Well, I don't know. Basically, Nintendo's going to be rethinking a lot of the Zelda conventions, the Zelda formula, the order a player is supposed to complete dungeons and how Zelda's like a play it by yourself game.
Yeah.
So
Zelda's technically, I guess, actually, a sort of open world game.
And in some ways, yeah.
In some ways, but it's more like a guided open world game.
Yeah.
So this is their chance to cut the freaking umbilical cord and run out into the actual open world.
Oh yeah. And it just looks gorgeous too. It's one of the first games for the Wii U. Well, not one of the first, but one of the first from Nintendo. Yeah. Because Smash looks great and Mario Kart 8 looks great, but that's a very different art style. Yeah. That's the type of art style. It's very clean. There's not a lot of crazy. Well, there is some crazy lighting sometimes, but I don't know. It's just not oh, that's pretty. It's oh, that just looks really good.
Yeah. Definitely.
This game looks pretty. So.
He also knows a lot about pretty things, so leave it to him to decide that.
I'm a bit of a connoisseur, but anyway, I'm looking forward to Zelda U.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's the other honorable mention, and so that kind of wraps up the 9001, and we're gonna try to have a final boss note, just something you guys should check out, and Randall's gonna take it away here.
Yeah. So our final boss note today, we're just talking about today's episode's name was inspired by Team 4-Star's DBZ Abridged. I don't know if any of y'all have seen that, but it's something that I've been really hyped up on for the past few weeks, and these guys know that for sure. Make sure to check this episode out that we've linked, and we've linked the time reference for what our namesake is for this show.
Yeah, it's definitely a good laugh, and it won't take up too much time, unless you want to watch the whole episode, which
you should, and then watch the entire thing because it's really good.
Yep. There you go. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Thanks for tuning in this week. Please feel free to shoot us any questions or comments to 9001podcast@gmail.com. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and if you want, you can just get a direct download from the website. That's at 9001rad.io.
Ah, see what we did there?
We're clever.
Anyway, until next time, this has been the 9001 Podcast.
See ya.
Goodbye.
See ya.
Yeah, Wilson, you're not allowed to be a part of this.
Yeah, I thought me and Lane are the only ones allowed to say goodbye.
We are the only ones allowed to say goodbye. Come on, man.
Yeah, Wilson, you might be facing some legal repercussions after that.
Yeah, called death. Alright, fuck you, bitches.
Lane, dude, this is not a very comfortable work environment when you talk like that, alright?
It's okay, 'cause I hate you.
That's not true. People shouldn't lie, Lane.
Future.
I know, Facebook's not the future, but it's our right now. And we gotta use it.
What kind of show intro do y'all want to do? Like, it's over 9,000!
999.
Don't you want to do?